Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's never been done before, twice. We had our original at Buckingham Palace, and now I guess we're going to Windsor. And it's never been done, and I'm a big fan of King Charles. I've known him for quite a while. He's a great guy, great person. He looks really well to me.
Well, Chris, we heard this news overnight here in Britain that the King Charles III has invited President Trump and his wife, First Lady Melania, to London. They will be coming here, Chris, in September, from September 17 to 19.
Prince Harry's surprise visit to Ukraine, and he's expected to meet with Ukrainian Prime Minister.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel where the royal stage meets the world stage. Today, we're diving into a story that's nothing short of explosive. On one side, King Charles, measured, diplomatic, and carrying the weight of centuries of monarchy, quietly prepares to welcome Donald Trump in a high-stakes encounter that could shape Britain's global image. And on the other side, Prince Harry, once the mischievous prince, now the soldier without a crown, steps into a war zone in Ukraine, reigniting questions about loyalty, legacy, and the dangers of carving his own path away from the royal fold. It's diplomacy versus danger, tradition versus rebellion, and yes, family versus family. So buckle up, because this is not just another royal headline. This is a clash of roles, reputations, and risks that could define the future of the monarchy itself. King Charles has long been viewed as a monarch with a global conscience. His decades of speeches on climate change, interfaith dialogue, and international cooperation have painted him as a king who wants Britain to look outward, not inward. But welcoming Donald Trump, known for his brash style, unpredictable remarks, and frosty relationship with Buckingham Palace in the past, isn't just diplomacy. It's a gamble. Why? Because every handshake, every photograph, every carefully worded statement between Charles and Trump will be dissected not only in Britain, but across the Atlantic. The American press will spin it one way, the British tabloids another. To some, Charles extending the royal red carpet signals pragmatism. Britain needs US goodwill in a fractured global climate. To others, it reeks of compromise, even capitulation, as if the monarchy is willing to bend its morals for political survival. And lurking in the background, memories of Trump's infamous 2019 state visit, when he praised the Queen, but cast shadows with off-script remarks. Charles knows the monarchy's credibility is delicate, and aligning too closely, or too coldly, with Trump could spark backlash at home and abroad. While Charles prepares for royal dinners and diplomatic smiles, Harry chooses a very different battlefield. Reports swirl of him traveling to Ukraine, not as a royal envoy, but as Harry the veteran, the ex-soldier, who once wore the uniform with pride. For Harry, this isn't about optics. It's personal. His military service remains the one part of his past that commands respect, even from critics. By visiting Ukraine, he's reminding the world, and perhaps himself, that while he may have walked away from royal titles, he hasn't walked away from courage. But let's be honest, it's risky. Ukraine is not Windsor Castle. There are no palace guards, no velvet ropes, no carefully controlled press access. Harry is stepping into an unpredictable zone where cameras may capture him not in ceremonial uniforms, but in the raw, chaotic reality of war. Supporters hail it as noble. Detractors warn it's reckless, another bid for headlines, another play to overshadow his family. And isn't that the question? Every step Harry takes in Ukraine will be measured against what Charles is doing back home. The king shaking hands with Trump, the son shaking hands with soldiers. Two images, two narratives, and the public forced to choose which one feels more authentic. You can't tell this story without mentioning Diana. Both Charles and Harry carry her ghost into these moments. For Charles, Trump's visit could backfire, reminding the world of his stiff, formal diplomacy compared with Diana's warmth and natural connection with people. The public might ask, would Diana have handled this differently? Would she have embraced diplomacy with more grace? For Harry, the echoes are even louder. Diana was the people's princess, known for walking through landmine fields in Angola, a fearless humanitarian in places where royals were never expected to go. Now Harry, perhaps consciously, follows in her footsteps, entering a war zone, not as a figurehead, but as a participant. Is Harry chasing her ghost? Is he trying to rewrite history by being the people's prince she always wanted him to be? If so, then his Ukraine journey is not just about today's war. It's about healing wounds that never closed between mother, father, and son. But let's not pretend this is happening in isolation. Behind the pomp of Charles' diplomacy and the grit of Harry's war visit is the ongoing fracture of the House of Windsor. Imagine being Prince William for a moment. He stands at home, preparing to inherit the throne, watching his father walk the diplomatic tightrope with Trump and his brother dive headfirst into danger. How does William compete with that? For him, stability is the priority, but stability rarely grabs headlines. Harry's actions, no matter how controversial, dominate the global news cycle. And Meghan, her silence is deafening. Is she supportive of Harry's Ukraine trip or quietly horrified at the risks he's taking? Some say she's encouraging him to reclaim his identity beyond the monarchy. Others whisper that she fears every war zone visit deepens the rift between Harry and the rest of his family. And Charles, he may smile at Trump, but you can bet he's worried. For a king obsessed with preserving the monarchy's dignity, having a son in a war zone, not under royal protection, not under palace management, feels like a threat to control. It's a reminder that no crown can fully command its wayward prince. Here's where things get fascinating. To the British tabloids, Charles' meeting with Trump will be painted as a test of statesmanship. Did he handle it with grace? Did he embarrass the nation? Did he defend Britain's values? Or did he bow to politics? But Harry in Ukraine, that's clickbait gold. Headlines will scream, Prince in the war zone. Images of him wearing military gear, shaking hands with soldiers, maybe even dodging real danger. Those are pictures that don't fade. So the question becomes, who wins in the court of public opinion? The king, cautious and diplomatic, or the son, reckless but real? And maybe that's the tragedy of the royal family. Charles and Harry aren't just living their lives. They are living symbols, forced into narratives bigger than themselves. And no matter what they do, the world will judge, compare, and choose sides. If Charles is the careful monarch, then Donald Trump is the unpredictable opponent. Every meeting with Trump is a gamble, a chessboard where the king cannot afford to lose a piece. Think about it. Charles must strike a balance. Too formal, and critics will call him out of touch. Too friendly, and they'll accuse him of betraying Britain's values. And Trump, he thrives on chaos, on spectacle. A single off-script remark from him could turn Charles' diplomacy into a late-night comedy punchline. But here's the twist. Some insiders whisper that Charles actually sees an opportunity. By hosting Trump, he positions himself not just as the King of Britain, but as a global statesman capable of managing even the most difficult figures. If he pulls it off, he strengthens the monarchy's soft power. If he fails, the damage won't just be personal. It could weaken the monarchy's image for years to come. So, in a way, Charles isn't just playing diplomat. He's playing for history. Meanwhile, Harry's gamble is of a different kind. Entering Ukraine isn't about diplomacy, it's about defiance. Some see his visit as bravery, a noble attempt to shine a spotlight on a brutal war. Others see it as reckless theater, an attempt to outshine his father's carefully managed image by showing raw courage instead of royal protocol. But here's where the story deepens. Harry isn't just a prince-turned-veteran. He's also a global celebrity, a figure tied to Netflix, memoirs, and endless tabloid scrutiny. Ukraine is not Hollywood, and yet, the cameras will follow him there too. The question is, will those images be seen as heroic or manipulative? And imagine the fallout if something were to go wrong. A security breach, an injury, even just one photo taken out of context, could spark a firestorm that drags the monarchy back into chaos. So while Charles' risk is political, Harry's is physical. Both men, in their own way, are rolling dice with their reputations. But we can't ignore the silent figure in all of this, Prince William. While Charles entertains Trump and Harry tours Ukraine, William stays at home, steady, reliable, but overshadowed. His role has always been to be the future king, but in this moment, he looks almost sidelined. To some, this is deliberate. William knows his father must command the stage now. He knows his brother thrives on drama, so he plays the long game. Stability, patience, the quiet air waiting for his turn. But is that enough? When the world is buzzing about Charles and Harry, William risks fading into the background. And in today's media-driven monarchy, being invisible is sometimes more dangerous than being controversial. At the heart of this story lies the ultimate contrast, the crown versus the outsider. Charles represents everything the monarchy is supposed to be: continuity, diplomacy, carefully controlled tradition. Harry represents everything the monarchy resists: independence, unpredictability, raw humanity. And yet, paradoxically, both need each other. Charles needs Harry's bravery to remind the world that royals aren't just figureheads, they can act. Harry needs Charles' crown to remind the world that his story still matters, because of where he came from. It's a strange dance, the king and the exile, locked in a rivalry they may never resolve. Let's zoom out. Why does any of this matter beyond palace walls? Because the monarchy, like it or not, is global theatre. Charles meeting Trump isn't just a handshake. It's Britain signaling how it wants to be seen on the world stage, flexible, diplomatic, resilient. Harry in Ukraine isn't just a visit. It's the monarchy's rebel son inserting himself into the defining conflict of our era, whether or not the palace approves. For America, this could reignite debates about the monarchy's role in politics. For Europe, it raises questions about royal engagement in real-world crises. And for Britain, it forces a reckoning. Which image do they want their monarchy to project? Tradition or action? Diplomacy or danger? Here's where it gets fascinating. Neither Charles nor Harry is thinking just about today's headlines. They are thinking about legacy. Charles knows his reign is shorter than most. Every action he takes is about defining himself quickly, solidifying what he stands for before passing the crown to William. Hosting Trump is part of that. Risky, controversial, but potentially historic. Harry, meanwhile, is thinking about relevance. He's no longer in line for power, but he doesn't want to fade away. Ukraine gives him a chance to write a new chapter, one that separates him forever from being just the spare. If he succeeds, he'll be remembered not just as a royal exile, but as a man who stood where others would not. Legacy is the prize. Reputation is the cost. But here's the danger. Both Charles and Harry could lose. If Charles appears too close to Trump, he risks angering Britons, who see Trump as divisive. If Harry is accused of exploiting Ukraine for image, he risks losing what little moral high ground he still has. And in that double loss, the monarchy itself could suffer. Because while Charles and Harry play their games, the institution they represent, or once represented, takes the hit. Every misstep becomes fuel for Republicans who argue the monarchy is outdated, tone-deaf, or irrelevant. So, in truth, this isn't just about father and son. It's about whether the monarchy can adapt to a world where image is everything, and mistakes are magnified 1,000 times. King Charles, the monarch who waited a lifetime for the throne, now tests his statesmanship against one of the most unpredictable figures in modern politics. Prince Harry, the prince who walked away, now risks everything to prove he is more than a title. William, the heir, watches silently, knowing his time will come, but wondering what kind of monarchy he'll inherit when it does. It's diplomacy versus danger, crowns versus courage, legacy versus rebellion. And beneath it all, one truth: this family, fractured as it may be, still holds the world's attention like no other. The question isn't whether Charles or Harry will win this round. The question is whether the monarchy itself can survive the storm of politics, war, and media that surrounds it. Because in the end, history won't remember the handshakes, or even the photo ops. It will remember whether the House of Windsor rose to the challenge, or crumbled under the weight of its contradictions. Is Charles wise to embrace Trump in the name of diplomacy, or is he risking the monarchy's credibility? Is Harry courageous for walking into Ukraine, or reckless for chasing headlines at the expense of safety? And most importantly, whose legacy will history honor, the king bound by duty, or the prince who broke free? Drop your thoughts below, because this isn't just royal drama, it's history in motion.